Welcome everyone to another Saturday guest speaker event with Mothers Against Addiction. Our acronym is MAAA, MA, just like Pa, consider us your Ma. We are a national nonprofit organization dedicated to helping mothers and families affected by addiction. We offer support, resources like this, a guest speaking event, and information to mothers struggling with addiction in their lives. Before I introduce our powerful guests today, how our Saturday huddles work, all our sessions are confidential and only our guest speaker and myself are spotlighted at this particular event because it's recorded and you're not recorded. Once our interview with our guest speaker is conducted or wrapped up, we leave it open to your questions. You can answer via chat. Feel free to unmute yourself, and you can also leave your recorders off if you feel comfortable. So come on, let's get cozy. Let's put your feet up and enjoy what you're about to experience. MAA is proud to introduce you all to Bryce Givens. He is the founder and CEO of several addiction recovery organizations based out of Colorado, including Elevate Recovery Homes, True North Recovery Services. I really like that name. And All the Way Well, another great name. His personal journey through addiction and incarceration shaped his commitment to helping others overcome similar challenges. Bryce dedicates now his life to providing support and resources to individuals and families impacted by addiction, drawing from his own experiences of hope, healing, and practical tools for recovery. So it is a pleasure. A lot of people have been waiting for your guest speaking event, Bryce. Can you tell us, this question says, tell us a little bit about yourself, but tell us a lot about yourself.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Eva. I appreciate it. Mothers Against Addiction, I've known about your guys' organization for a few years now. I met Justin and Shayna and Donovan actually at a Tony Robbins Business Mastery event a couple of years ago. And everybody was wearing these red shirts with this broken heart on it. And, there was probably 1,000 people at this event. And you see, the first day that people started wearing shirts, there was maybe 30, 40. The next day there was like 200. And I was like, what the heck is this? I need to go talk to somebody. So I ended up, being able to connect with Justin and Shayna and learn about your organization and the good work that you guys are doing. So again, just want to say I appreciate you for having me on and share my story and be able to share some resources and hope for anybody who's listening. But a little bit about myself. My name's Bryce Givens. I'm 35 years old. I've got a 8-month-old daughter named Birdie Moon, and my wife and I live here in Colorado. We both grew up here and were raised here. I can take this story many different directions, so I'll try to keep it concise and get to the point and just share as much context as possible about this specific discussion. But for me, I grew up the son of a professional athlete, so for me, athletics were a big portion of my formative years and learning about myself and playing team sports and developing some of the characteristics and values that I still have today were kind of taught to me through athletics. And then having a dad who was a professional athlete and somebody who I looked up to and was my idol, like I obviously wanted to become a professional athlete as well. So in high school, I played football. I excelled at football. I was very talented and it kind of came naturally to me. I'm 6'6". And so I, am a big person and I luckily was given some athletic genes. And so I was highly recruited coming out of high school and pretty much could have chosen any Division I college that I wanted to go play football. I ended up choosing the University of Colorado in Boulder because I'm from here. My family's from here. I kind of took a gamble that, our program was on the upswing. I knew I could play early there. So there was a number of reasons why I chose Boulder. Growing up here, I was never a fan of CU. I always liked other teams like USC Trojans or the Notre Dame Fighting Irish or Texas Longhorns. And the funny thing is I got recruited to all of these schools. And then for whatever reason, divine intervention, but ended up choosing to stay here in Colorado. When I got to Boulder, my life became unmanageable very quickly. I had, played around with drugs and alcohol when I was in high school, recreationally partying, kind of having fun, the natural sort of trajectory of most high school kids. Um, and so I was, not a crazy like party animal or anything, but I definitely experimented with a bunch of substances. And once I got to Boulder, I kind of really didn't have the structure, didn't have the sort of family support that I had had in high school all growing up. And then was kind of just left to my own devices, and it started to spiral out of control really quickly. So I started doing OxyContin after I received a concussion. This is my redshirt freshman year. This is probably 2 or 3 months after I got up to Boulder, and the medical staff was like, "Don't take any, narcotics. Don't take any painkillers, anything like that." But I didn't listen to them, and I started taking oxy. That very quickly spiraled out of control into kind of a full blown addiction pretty quickly. So, I'll kind of fast forward. I ended up getting sent to treatment. I told the team like, "Hey, I have a problem. Like, I need to get some help." Told my coaches, and they're like, "Okay, you definitely need to go get some treatment." So that's really where my recovery journey started. I was a freshman in college. Went to treatment, a 28-day treatment center in Colorado Springs. Then I returned back to school. And that's really where my cycle of, relapse and then being on the wagon um, started. So this is probably 2009, January of 2009. And then for the next really 8 years, it was just battling that. I won't go into too much detail, but ultimately ended up throwing away my football career, throwing away graduating from college, transferring schools, and the same behaviors kept resurfacing. I'd have bouts of sobriety, and then I'd fall off. And then I'd have, 6 months clean time and then fall off. So for me, it was just like a constant struggle of trying to like, manage a social life and manage school and manage a full-time job really as a Division I college football player. And I was unable to do that on my own. So ultimately, after throwing away my career and finishing up school, I failed an NCAA drug test on my fourth year of school, which you have 5 years of eligibility to play for in the NCAA. And I was in my fourth year and I failed a drug test. So I lost my last year of eligibility. So I was virtually done playing football. So from there, I mean, I was still in full blown addiction. And now I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what am I going to do? Well, I did what I knew how to do best. And that was, get drugs and sell drugs. So that's what I did. I ended up, kind of starting off middlemaning drugs, which is meaning like somebody else would want to buy drugs. I would have the connection. So I would go get them. I would get a little bit extra, sell them the drugs. And then that little bit extra 3 or 4 or 5 times would give me enough so that I could, you know, um, what they call in a heroin addiction is get well, but so that I could get well and then also have some extra to make some money on the side. That quickly transpired into me, getting fronted drugs and starting to sell drugs on a bigger level. Ultimately, what happened was I ended up getting caught with a pretty significant amount of drugs and got an 8-year prison sentence. Now, for me, that still wasn't enough, right? I got sentenced in 2017. And fortunately, I got sentenced to a place called Pier 1, which is a behavioral modification rehab. It's a therapeutic community, and it's a 2-year, essentially, very intensive treatment center. So I go to this place and I'm learning all about myself. I'm learning about trauma. I'm learning about, the underlying conditions of my addiction and, the symptoms of addiction and how the drug use is just a symptom of what's happening. And it's really unprocessed trauma. And so I'm learning all this stuff, going through all this therapy, and it's great. And I'm finally having like a bout of long-term sobriety. Uh, there's this substance called kratom. It's an over-the-counter. I don't necessarily want to call it a drug, but it is a drug. It does give you a high. But I started drinking kratom about a year into this program, And what I noticed was that very quickly I recognized that I was redoing the same behaviors and playing out the same behaviors that I had for the 10 years prior. So I made a conscious decision like, hey, this has got to stop. I need to stop this before it spirals out of control and before I end up having to go to prison. Well, in a therapeutic community, things always come to the surface, whether it's immediate or 6 months down the line. So for me, I stopped. There was a couple months that had gone by, and I was literally 4 days away from graduating the first phase of the program to move to outpatient phase. So I was already there for a year. And I come home from work one day and, um, again, not to go too much into detail because you don't have enough context, but ultimately what happened was I got arrested for drinking that kratom months before. So I'm sitting in the back of this paddy wagon and I'm on my way to prison. I know that my sentence is going to be converted to a prison sentence. And I couldn't help but just like cry tears of joy because I knew for me that ultimately, yes, I was going to have to go to prison and have to go, deal with the consequences of my decisions. But I knew that this was a breakthrough moment for me and that I had the choice to either stay on the path that I was on and waste my life and be selfish and not take any accountability and ownership, or the alternative, which is I could choose to live. I could choose to self-actualize. I could choose to be the best version of myself that I could be. I could choose to reach my potential. And for me, it was like so vividly clear. It was an epiphany to say, all right, Bryce, here's your chance. And so I chose this path. And from that day forward, I have, been on this journey of trying to become the best version of myself that I can be. And ultimately that has led me to, through a bunch of introspection and meditation and reading and researching, has led me to the path that I'm on now. At the time, I didn't know I wanted to help people or get into this space whatsoever. I just knew that I wanted to do the right thing. So over the time that I was in prison, I, focused on myself. I used it as a sabbatical to really, you know, take some time to learn who I was, what values I had, the characteristics that I really wanted to display in my life, and the character that I wanted to uphold. I read a lot, I meditated a lot, I journaled a lot, I, surrounded myself with good people. Um, and yes, you can find good people in prison. I found a lot of decent people who were on the right path, who also wanted to figure their lives out. So that's what I did, and I basically was on the inside for a little bit over a year, and then I got out and I was in the halfway house for about 9 months. Same thing, just kept my head down, focused on finishing out this sentence and moving forward with my life. There was a couple of different scenarios and circumstances which kind of led me down the path that I'm on now. I had a few friends who were really struggling, going in and out of treatment centers, in and out of sober living homes, kept relapsing, kept overdosing. And I just knew, it was just clear as day, that like now was the time for me to want to be able to help these guys out because they were my dear friends. And then there was some certain things that happened in my life that presented the opportunity for me to be able to do this. So I met my wife when I got out of the halfway house, and COVID hit literally like a month later. We had moved in with each other into an apartment in March, the beginning of March, and then COVID hits in like a couple weeks. So we're living together all of 2020. She was not working because her job, she worked for Lululemon, and Lululemon was all work from home. So we got to spend a lot of time together, and we got to really like figure some stuff out together. So it was like another year-long sabbatical that we really got to understand, like, okay, what do we want to do? And at the time, she was trying to transition out of retail and get into real estate. So that for me was a big catalyst in the opportunity of us starting a sober living. So we purchased a house together. We lived in the basement, and then upstairs we started Elevate Recovery Homes. And so Elevate Recovery Homes is a sober living organization here in Denver. We now have about 150 beds. We've got 6 houses and a 32-unit apartment complex. So it's grown tremendously over the last, that was in 2021. So in the last 3 years, we've significantly expanded our reach and our resources and our services. And then that has kind of transpired into us opening up a treatment center, which is called True North Recovery Services. And True North is a Joint Commission accredited behavioral health admission or administration licensed facility here in Colorado. We provide intensive outpatient treatment, and we also serve as a managed service organization for about 10 other organizations who are running what is known in our industry as peer recovery services. So how you can think of this is there's the treatment aspect, which most people are aware of, maybe like a Passages Malibu or, Betty Ford Clinic. There's these residential treatment services, and then there's outpatient. So there's 3 levels of outpatient. Well, then when individuals and clients finish both residential and outpatient, what do? Sometimes they go to sober living. Sometimes they go back to independent living or they're moved back in with their families. So this peer recovery services are essentially, you can think of it like a 12-step sponsor, but without the 12 steps. It's more of somebody with lived experience who's helping you kind of walk the walk. It's an accountability buddy. It's not a sponsor and it's not a therapist. So it's something different from those things. You're not really focused on the therapy aspect and you're not focused on 12 steps. It's, an all pathways approach. And so we help other organizations successfully run and manage their peer service organizations for their clients. And we have about 700 clients under our umbrella who we're directly supervising and helping. So it's been fantastic to say the least. And then I'll get into All the Way Well. So All the Way Well is our own peer coaching organization. It's a nonprofit, 501c3, just like you guys. And we throw programs and events. So I don't know if you guys have talked with Justin and Shayna about the 4x4x48 event that we did in May of this year. So we do really fun, engaging, mentally, physically, and emotionally challenging things so that people can build community, share a sense of connection, push their bodies, push their minds, and then they can learn how to do things in sobriety and actually live a life of recovery. I know you guys have probably all heard the talk by Johan Hari when he talks about the antidote to addiction is connection. And so for us, All the Way Well's mission is to help support individuals and families so that they can self-actualize and that they can reach their full potential. And how we do that is through building community, through, finding connection in the things that you like to do outside of work and outside of family life. So things like rock climbing, mountain biking, weightlifting. We actually have a weightlifting class going on right now. We do programs every single day of the week. I think we just submitted for a grant application yesterday with a fantastic organization called the Daniels Fund. And they were asking us some questions about how many groups we've done. So far in the last, 12 months, we've done 914 days of group time in total. Something like 29,000 hours of groups that we've done in the last 12 months. So it's been fantastic. We have an amazing workforce, amazing coaches, an amazing clinical staff. And I'm just so grateful and lucky and blessed to be able to do the work that I do now. So hope that answers your question. I know that was long-winded. So
No, that's beyond it. That is beyond it. Because as you know, you're athletic. I've introduced you as a powerful person, and thank you for introducing my name. I'm always Ma, so Eva is just transformed into this Ma person. But what advice would you give for those that maybe they don't see themselves? Well, like, gosh, he's comes from an athletic family. He already had this powerful mind. I get hearing people saying that they're just, they can't do it. They're doing a 360. They have no other options where to go. And especially the mothers out there, whether they themselves have their own addictions or they have their children or their son, you're a son. What would you say to the struggling mothers out there that are worry is one of the biggest things we hear in our group sessions. Worry, the anxiety, where's my child? Or they're out there on the streets, or I haven't heard from them. What would you suggest they should do? I like when you mentioned self care. I was reading your article. That's what we try to offer them, a lot of self care. But what would you say from a son's perspective to these mothers?
Yeah, I think I have kind of an unorthodox approach to this response because it might not be the what people want to hear. But for me personally and through my experience, I had to go through what I had to go through in order to get to where I am now. So I know people are dying, and ultimately, at the end of the day, people are going to continue to die, and it's very, very sad and it's unfortunate. But for me, and I was on the, I overdosed many, many times, had to get Narcan many times. Like I've been on the brink of death. But for me, in talking to my mother, right, like, cause she and I still have a very close relationship, and the angst and just suffering that I put her through, I don't wish that upon anybody. However, I had to go through what I had to go through, and there's nothing that she could have done or did do or didn't do that could have affected my journey and my path. I had to go through it myself in order for me to make the decision ultimately on my own that I wanted to do this for my life. Because you can be a helicopter mom, or you can, you can want and try your hardest to like try to navigate and help and provide resources and be there and be supportive. But ultimately, at the end of the day, um, you know, I had to make that decision for myself. I would say I would recommend, like, I don't know the context or the circumstances for all of these relationships, because some mothers have very close relationships with their children, some don't. However you think you can best support your kid, do that in just a way. Just being loving, but not trying to dictate what somebody needs to do or not do. Just being there. And that, I think, was a big thing for me. I always knew that, like, my mom was there for me, even though, like, I was um not receptive to her love. I still knew deep down that she loved me. So that's all you can do, is just love them. And sometimes that means you have to love them from a distance. And that's okay, because they have to make the decisions that they're going to make. Um, and that's why I say it's a little unorthodox, because at the end of the day, I don't think you can control anything, you know? So that would be my response. I know that's not what people want to hear.
Well, no, a mother's going to worry no matter what, even if you tell them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a mother that maybe they're struggling through their own addiction and then they have a child struggling with addiction. Then you're dealing with a double whammy.
Totally.
How do you address those doing what you're doing now in your recovery treatments? Um, what would you say about that?
Yeah, again, and I think that first answer was definitely like my personal response in from a and I'm not a clinician, but I do have a bunch of clinicians that work for me. That is very atypical, not a clinical response. So I don't want to conflict saying, like, this is not how our organization would act. Our organization is very hands-on, very, focused on the family. We have LMFTs, LCSWs, licensed professional counselors, licensed addiction counselors, so they would speak to more about, like, how to navigate and handle those situations. But really having support there is definitely and communicating, right? It's all like the 8 pillars of whole person health is what we really try to embody. And so, it's focusing on your nutrition, it's focusing on exercise, it's focusing on your interpersonal communication and relationships. Communication is critical. I think that is the most important aspect of recovery, not only for the addict, but also for loved ones. Like, being open minded and not trying to control, and just trying to put yourself in a position of understanding, right? Active listening. Um, you know, it's nobody's fault, right? Not blaming. And so it's trying to take an approach that is non-confrontational. And so for us, like especially in our practice, we really, really emphasize as many resources as we possibly can. Right. And I know what we're really good at, but I also know that we're not experts at everything. We are definitely specialists and not generalists. And so we've developed a like robust resource network of people who are specialists in any given modality or methodology. And so what we do is, if we're not the right fit for a family or for a client, we get them to a place where we know that they can, have the most likelihood to succeed and thrive. So that's really one of the things that we focus on specifically with like our marketing and business development efforts is like having people who are very well connected, not only in Colorado, but nationwide, so that we can get these individuals and these families the resources and the care that they actually need, depending on what level of service they need.
That's amazing. And I'm sure everybody's going, gosh, you just moved forward like that movie Speed. You just kept going, 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 and you're just not stopping. Where do you find that in yourself? I mean, some people may say, gosh, he already had that athleticism. He was born with it. He came from a father that was an athlete. He was an athlete himself. I'm not that way. What if they're what would you say to them? Because this group is for men or women that show up and they're going to be watching this that stumble across this on the internet. What would you say to them? If they feel like, gosh, they're not Bryce Givens, but they're themselves and they have their own separate identities and niches in life. What would you say to them after they get out of recovery and maybe they're motivated doing the things you do? Is there any things that pushed you beyond that throttle that you said, I'm going to go ahead and make these recovery centers because this is amazing. You've just kind of like you made yourself and doubled yourself in every which way to help other people in our communities. What would you suggest to them if they feel that
I
might
would,
compete with you?
yeah, I would say everybody's capable. I think people sell themselves short so often in life, right? And our whole thing is right, r- realizing your full potential. And everybody is capable of doing this. It just comes down to clarity. And this is stuff I learned from like, Tony Robbins and my life coaches and working with therapists and working with business coaches and stuff. Clarity is key. Like if you don't know where you're going, like the Cheshire Cat thing from Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So like you have to be clear on what it is that you want and where you're going. And then once you have like specificity and you have clarity and you can really understand like, okay, this is exactly what this looks like, then you can build a roadmap to accomplish that. And then it's just doing the work. All right. So I think for the first thing is just understanding, okay, well, what is it specifically that you want? I know you guys have probably heard about like SMART goals, right? So like this is something we employ with all of our guys is like focusing on like specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So there's the acronym called SMART, and that's what you need. You need specificity. You need to be able to measure it. How do you measure success? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so maybe it's also thinking about something that's attainable. Start off with something small, right? Like oftentimes I feel like people set too lofty of goals, and then as soon as they don't accomplish it, it reinforces that in their brain to say, oh well, I didn't accomplish it this time, what's the point of me even doing it next time? It's like let's make something attainable and realistic and then set a timeline. I know for me, I've very much have like addict behaviors and mentalities, and it's like for me I need to be on the clock. 'Cause if I'm not on the clock, like I procrastinate. And I think all business owners inherently are lazy. Like I'm a lazy person. That's why I do all this stuff because I'm trying to find the easier way to accomplish something. Ultimately, that's what business is. It's like finding an easier way to do something. So, um, yeah, no, I would say everybody's capable. Every single person on this call is capable for sure. I think it really just requires like being uncomfortable, putting yourself in circumstances and scenarios where you have to be uncomfortable and be able to push through those things. I'm actually writing a book right now on resilience. And this is what a lot of the theme of the book is on is like, how do we become more mentally tough? How do we give ourselves grace? How do we push through? How do we be uncomfortable in times? How do we, take whatever circumstance and figure out a way to, shape and mold the outcome that you desire by developing a system. And if it takes you 10 years, it takes you 10 years. If it takes you 2 days, it's 2 days, but it's just doing the work and being consistent over time. So that would be my response is like, everyone's capable. You can do it. Get clear on what it is that you want to do and then take action.
That's yeah. That's so very true, and the SMART principle is a very good one. I've heard that sometimes, but you say it in a different way that I haven't heard it at a different angle. And you do remind me of a younger Anthony Robbins. I'm not saying
That's so funny. So many people have said that too.
okay,
It's the
okay.
jawline, man. It's the jawline.
You do look like Anthony Robbins. Wait a minute. But no, this is very important because hearing from mothers and we're dealing with this target area. There's mothers, sisters, granddaughters, grandmothers. Uh, whether mothers lose their children to custody because of drug addiction. It sounds like you're a parent. I think I heard on the phone you're about to be a new parent. What would you do or say to other parents that would be something they could have their takeaway? We're seeing this now, a lot of struggling parents with their youth. What would you say with their takeaway as being a parent? I know this would be, I'm not sure, is this your first time being a parent?
My first time being a parent. Yeah, I got a little 8-month-old baby. Yeah,
You're gonna be a lot on it. But what would you say to any parents out there that are just have all these questions like, where do I go? Where do we begin? And you probably met so many in your treatment centers.
totally.
Uh, what's a good parenting tip that we can have for today?
Yeah, I would say, I think there's probably really good resources no matter where all the listeners are coming from. There's really good, especially in the last 5 years, there's been a huge shift. I know, and maybe I'm in a little echo chamber here in Denver, but I know Denver is it's a really progressive place when it comes to mental health and substance use treatment. So I know there's a ton of resources here. If you're not in a place where you feel like there's resources, I would say just get online. Like get online and do some research. I would recommend, calling maybe 4 or 5 treatment centers that are local to you and just asking them questions because they're going to know where you can get put in the right, you know, on the phone with the right person, whether that's a therapist or whether that's a recovery support group or whether that's, it's all about like taking action. Um, there are no, I don't want this to come off the way that it might, so I might want to reframe. No, I'll reframe it. There's always a resource. And it just requires you putting in enough work to find the right resource if you don't have access to or feel like you have access to that. I'm here to help. If people want to get a hold of me, I'm happy to connect you or give you ideas or point you in the right direction. Obviously, I've being a brand new parent, it's I can't really speak on having children or loved ones that are going through active addiction. And so that to me is not something that I face, but I've seen it on the other side, and seen the damage and the suffering that I've caused from my parents. And so I have empathy towards the parents because I know they just really want to do the best for their kids and love their kids. So I think find the right resource, call people, be active, stay strong. Again, I can help. I hope that answers your question.
Sure, no problem. And that would probably be a motherly question to ask. You already have people commenting that you're very inspiring. You turn your challenges into lessons. When you back then, and I don't want to take it back then because you're here now. When you're finding yourself through all the struggles, what brought you out of that struggle? Was it a higher power? Was it something like meditating? Was it something that gave yourself to universe? Was it spirituality? What
Yeah, so
gravitated you?
for me, I think it was a number of things. Um, I think spirituality was a big component. So I went to Catholic school. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Catholic. For me, have found that I've resonated most with some like more Eastern traditions, and I actually became kind of I don't want to say like a Buddhist, but I practiced a lot. I really, really got into Buddhism from about 2012 to still today. I meditate and I practice some of the traditions of Buddhism. So I guess you could say like spirituality, even though Buddhism is a religion, it's like I don't really practice the sort of mythical components of Buddhism. But the mindfulness approach, I definitely practice. I meditate every single day. I feel like that is how I connect with, my higher power, source, God, universe, whatever, however you want to define it. um, that was a big thing for me, but then it was also just really like learning to love myself for who I was and like limiting my expectations that I had set on myself or expectations that I perceived were set on me through my loved ones or colleagues or family or friends or what have you. So that was the biggest shift for me. I know I can kind of go back to that breakthrough moment when I was sitting in the paddy wagon. For me, it was just like clear as day. It's like I don't want to be this person. I want to be this person. And so, like, everything that is in accordance or in alignment with who this person is or is trying to become, it's pretty simple. It's like, would future Bryce do this or behave this way or act in this way or think in this way or respond in this way? And if the answer is no, then it's like, okay, cool. And I'm still working on this, right? Like, I work on this every single day, all day long, right? Like, but at least one of the things for me in this path is that like I've really developed my self-awareness. And so I'll notice like, oh, I'll think about something or I'll have an emotional reaction to something and I'll be like, oh, I recognize that. Maybe let's take a breath, let's think about it, and then let's decide how we want to respond. For me, that was the biggest thing is saying like, I'm just going to submit. I'm gonna be submissive to whatever and try to relinquish control. And so that's what I've done.
Wow. So we had a topic that's coming up about manifestation. So do you think you manifested that in your life? Do you believe in that type of thing? I mean, it's like you told yourself where you're going to be in the future. You saw yourself or somehow, and now you are. Here you are. Living.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that word, there's a few words that get like thrown around, like that are keyword hot button words like manifestation that I think have kind of a bad rap, but that's exactly kind of what it is, right? It is, focus and clarity, visualization, taking action. So all of that stuff is how you manifest, right? You don't just sit there and manifest things. Like, so yeah, I mean, through the work that I've done, I've been able to quote unquote manifest these things, but it definitely takes focus and persistence and the action component.
Yeah, you have to do the work, right?
Got to do the work.
Well, you have the comment from Donovan, of course. It says, "Thank you, Bryce, for sharing your incredible journey you've been on. Your decision to not only rebuild your life, but also to help others understand who they are is inspiring." He has a question: were there any particular strategies or practices your mother used to communicate her love and belief in you, even when it was difficult?
Yeah, so she actually cut me off, right? So this was a big thing for me. She set a boundary. That was huge for me because I always knew that like no matter what, if I was, homeless or I needed like I could always call mom at the end of the day. Like I didn't, my addiction got so bad to where there was years where I didn't speak to my mother. But like I still, even though deep down knew inside that like she was still there for me, but that she wasn't going to tolerate my bullshit. And so setting that boundary was the biggest thing. And I know that was so, so, so hard for her just because of the type of person she is. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's not funny now, but I'm just so grateful that I get to have the relationship that I do with my mom. I get to see her pretty frequently. She comes over and watches my daughter all the time. And so I'm super fortunate and grateful for that. But she definitely set a boundary and that took her years to do. But I think it helped her. And then it also helped me because once it kind of relinquished this feeling of thinking like, oh, I can always fall back on mom to bail me out of jail or to send me $20 so that I could go get high. Like, no, she just cut it off. And once that kind of I was untethered, that really helped.
Okay. Well, that's going to help a lot of mothers too, because we get a lot like, when do I stop? What boundaries do I set? And it's hard to set those boundaries.
Yeah, you can't enable. You cannot enable. I think that's the biggest thing that I try to tell these mothers that, the mothers of the guys who are in our sober living is like, you cannot enable your kids. Stop enabling. You can still love them from a distance, but like, you got to set boundaries and you got to cut them off. They have to go through their own shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some mothers that are grandmothers and they take care of their children while they're on the streets. They have to do that. I'm sure that's not
Totally.
thinking it. Yeah.
Yes.
See that
It's all relative, right? It depends on the circumstance. It depends on, yeah. So, but
it's hard. It's a very tough thing. We did have another question from a Mel in the audience. When you're not working out physically, what exercises do you do to keep your mind sharp?
Totally. So that's a fantastic question. And actually, I would argue that like I spend more time trying to keep my mind sharp than I do my body sharp. Like, the physical component of me working out actually is more of a mental exercise, right? So I do my workouts, my physical exercise and my weightlifting and the Ironman training and all that stuff for my mind, because I know that if I don't do those, it has multiple benefits, right? It helps with the physicality, helps with the endorphins, all of that stuff. But mentally, for me, it's about like the consistency, it's about the routine, and it just makes me feel better. I also have recently, I know this is kind of like all the rage. Used to hate doing this when I was, younger and in college. They would make us get into whirlpools, like ice baths, and I used to absolutely hate them. But I do it very frequently now because it's a challenging thing. Getting in cold water, I mean, there's a lot of physiologic effects that happen to you that have been, proven through a lot of research that's recent, to show the benefits of that mentally. So I get in cold water as much as I possibly can. I have an ice bath at the house. I also have a sauna. So like I get in hot. I do hot cold contrasts. Meditation is a critical thing. I start every single morning off with meditation. If you don't know how to meditate, there's a ton of good apps out there. So I use the Waking Up app, which is from Sam Harris. There's Calm. There is Headspace. So there's so many good apps. Just start there. It's not like you can literally listen to something. You can do it for 5 minutes. You can do it for an hour. Doesn't matter. And they can walk you through that. But I would just say again, just do the work. Like if you want to get clarity, if you want to, make improvements, you have to do something different. And so for me, meditation's been critical. And I'm working with this girl right now, Lexi. She's phenomenal and she journals a lot. And I know Justin, I don't know if you guys have met Justin, but Justin journals a lot. And I've recently, you know, really had a desire to get back into journaling. I think there's something with like the tactile response of writing something down, getting your thoughts on paper. And I used to do it for years, and then I got away from it. And I'm gonna start doing journaling again. But I would say those are the biggest things. Like it's more of a mind trip than a body trip on a consistent basis. I think everything that I try to do, again, to go back to the self awareness piece, is like to become the best version of yourself. Like you have to constantly be iterating and improving. And I know that can kind of sound like, oh man, that's such a, like a unattainable thing, but it's not. It gets easy. The more you do it, the easier it gets.
Okay. We had somebody that asked several questions for you, but I hit you with the first one really quickly. What
Cool.
books have been the most impactful for you in your spiritual journey recently?
Oh man, what a great question. I would say, so I'll answer that in two ways. I'll say recently um and then probably the most impactful book that I've read in the last 10 years. Recently is, again, I'll bring up Sam Harris, and it's an older book of his, but um it's called Free Will, and he talks about free will. Um is it called Free Will? It's about, the whole theme is about free will. I think it's called Free Will. But Sam Harris, he's comes from like this Buddhist ideology and mentality, very educated, uh, does a lot of stuff for like the meditation space. and he talks about consciousness and free will and making decisions and determinism, and control, and like all of these aspects of like consciousness that are really, really interesting to me. Secondarily, I would say the most important book, or the most gifted book that I've given to other people, is Tools of Titans. It is
Mm.
by Tim Ferriss. It is a big, probably 500-page book, but it's excerpts from a lot of his podcasts. So it's probably 100 different mini chapters, and each chapter is an excerpt from podcasts that he's had with titans of industry. So doctors, lawyers, business executives, athletes, what have you. And so they take the most impactful and meaningful nuggets from each one of those and put it into this book. And there's so much gold in there. So I would say that's been the most impactful book in my life in general. And then the first one that comes to my mind is the Free Will book from Sam Harris.
Okay, well, great. That answered their second questions. They wanted to know what books do you recommend that they can gravitate to. But their third was, have there been any seminars or workshops that have significantly contributed to your personal development and self actualization?
Yeah. Um, it's kind of funny. So I'm no longer really a part of the Tony Robbins community anymore, but that's how I met Justin and Shana and Donovan. I had been doing a ton of work internally with my own kind of like life coach and spiritual coordinator. So the business mastery um, seminar was fantastic for me. And it actually was a catalyst to Justin and I starting our own podcast called Thriving in Recovery, and allowed me to meet so many wonderful people. So it really, like, I would say, has had the most impact on the trajectory of my life compared to any other seminars. But I just recently went to a business seminar in August, and it was, again, so transformational. And so it doesn't necessarily apply to, self improvement, even though it does, but indirectly. It was way more focused on business, but it's allowed me to meet and connect with more business owners who are, who share a lot of synergistic values that I have. And that was an acquisition.com workshop in August, and it was phenomenal. So I would say there are definitely speakers. There's definitely, seminars. There's definitely conferences that are out there. I actually really wanted to go to Joe DeSena's conference back in August, but it was like sold out here. And I've heard it's a really, really good one. So yeah, I mean, I'm always up for like meeting with other people, vibing with people, learning, and just sharing space with others. So it's, sorry that couldn't be more helpful, but for me, Tony Robbins was probably the most impactful.
Well, that's great. But we would love to, Mothers Against Addiction, always partner with you, or send people your way. Do you do anything? I'm in Texas, or there's other people that will be watching this from all walks because it's a Zoom session. What would you do? You do anything virtual for people, or is it just on site, or what?
Yeah, so we have a virtual IOP track that we do for clients, but I am a big believer of like in person
Okay.
stuff, right? So we do all of our stuff. We have that for clients who can't make it in person, but to connect with the community, I mean, I'm huge on being in person. However, we do have some stuff coming up in 2025. I know we're going to have about 10 to 15 people from Alaska, and we'll probably have about 20 people from here from different programs. We're going to go do the Rim to Rim to Rim Grand Canyon Challenge. So in 24 hours, you hike from the South Rim down into the canyon, up to the North Rim, and then go back. So it's a 42-mile trip. Not everybody's going to do the whole thing. They're only going to do certain portions and parts of it. But that'll be a really fun in-person way to connect with other people, learn from other people, meet other people, and do some cool stuff. So unfortunately, I don't have any other ways that like we can connect virtually as of right now. If people are looking specifically for like treatment services or, family therapy, or things like that, they can definitely reach out to me and I can get them I point them in the right direction for those things.
All right. Well, that sounds great. We're about to wrap it up. We're so thankful for you meeting you, Bryce Givens, and everybody else is going to be thankful. I'm going to be telling other mothers about you, and you're going to be an echo, especially here at Mothers Against Addiction. And however, we can provide resources for yourself, or we can partner. We would love to. I know Donovan and Justin and Shayna. It sounds like and are wonderful founders, and so it's very important for us. We have our Tuesday night sessions. If you have people that even gravitate to you or call you, send them our way too as well. We have Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. Is there anything coming up that you would want to share that you have coming up in your area, in your community?
Yeah, no, we've got if anybody's in Colorado and they want to come join us, we do our all houses meeting on Thursday nights at Free Spiritual Community, which we love the people over at Free. They're amazing. But this month, the last Thursday happens to be Halloween. So we're doing a Halloween party. And if anybody's in town and wants to wear a costume and come hang out with, 250 people in recovery and have catered food and have a good time, that's where we'll be. So I can share that information with Donovan after this, and you guys can post that flyer if you want, if anybody's in this Denver metro area.
Well, thank you. I feel like speaking to you now. I can go outside and run a mile.
Let's go. Yeah.
I had to do it. And I'm an avid mountain biker, but something happened where I couldn't mountain bike for a little bit. And you just given me the inspiration.
I love it. That's great.
I thought. And you're getting in a lot of thank you, Bryce, for your time on the chats and the guts to share your story. It's truly inspiring. And we are inspired as always. So this is Bryce Givens, and you can check him out in Colorado or through our resources here online. And you have a blessed day, you and your family, Bryce, and everybody that's working out right now. Okay, we feel your vibe.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks, Eva.
Bye.
Everybody. See ya.